Post. There was no Kelly Broche on 7th Street in Chattanooga.
Leibowitz had found a witness, a drifter named Lester Carter, who claimed that he knew where Price and Bates had really been the night before the train ride, with himself and a friend in a hobo camp near the train yards. Now, Leibowitz confronted Price with this story.
Did you tell a man by the name of Lester Carter that you would introduce him to Ruby?
I told you before, I never seen Lester Carter before.
Isn't it a fact that the night before you left Chattanooga, you and your boyfriend and Ruby and Lester Carter went walking along the railroad tracks?
No, sir. We never have been on the railroad together.
Isn't it a fact, Mrs. Price, that you had intercourse with your boyfriend on the ground while Ruby had intercourse with Lester Carter right beside you?
We absolutely did not.
Frustrated, Leibowitz finally shouted, "You're a pretty good little actress, aren't you?"
She fired right back at him immediately. She said, you're a pretty good actor yourself. You know, I remember that.
Unable to shake her story, Leibowitz resorted to accusing Price directly of lying.
Isn't the reason why you're making these charges you were found hoboing on a freight train?
I was seeking work for my mother.
And you saw the Negroes had been captured by the people at Paint Rock, and you thought you would be arrested for vagrancy for being a hobo on a train in the company of Negroes. And at that time, you determined to say they raped you to save yourself.
No, sir, I didn't.
Northern reporters who had been in the courtroom wired breathless accounts of Leibowitz's brilliant cross-examination. But to many Southerners, it had been a deep affront.
One possessed of that old Southern chivalry cannot read the transcript of the trial and keep within the law. The brutal manner in which Leibowitz cross-examines Mrs. Price makes one feel like reaching for his gun. The Sylacauga News.
He thought with each attack he was strengthening his case. And what he didn't understand was that with each attack on Victoria Price, he was weakening his case because the audience saw this not as an attack as he saw it upon this woman of ill repute, this prostitute. They saw it as an attack on Southern womanhood.
Leibowitz's cross-examination had stirred deep memories among Southerners of humiliations suffered at the hands of the North.
In the minds of many Alabamans, by the middle of the trial in Judge Horton's court, this case is not so much about what happened.
You'll accept him as such. And today, the Reds of New York march into the South with a law book and again say, the Negro is your equal, and you will accept him as such. We will not. The Jackson County Sentinel.
While blacks felt they were oppressed by Southern whites had a strong sense of their own oppression, that they were junior partners in the American experiment, that they were not fully accepted as citizens of the United States, and they resented that.
Much of that resentment was directed at Leibowitz himself.
He didn't like the South, and the South didn't like him in numbers. No get. We didn't ever care for him.
You heard the expressions on the outside of the courtroom, so to speak, that Jew lawyer ought to go back to New York.
Two retired New York City homicide detectives began to accompany Leibowitz everywhere he went.
Cable to the Brooklyn Eagle. There's intense feeling here because we have brought the question of Negro rights into the open. I have received numerous crank letters threatening death if I don't stop. we are sitting on a mountain of TNT. Samuel Leibowitz.
I was walking along on the sidewalk. A dirt farmer came along and shoved me off the sidewalk into the road and spit his tobacco juice. And to this day, I can feel that spit rolling down my cheek.
As the trial resumed, the tense atmosphere in the courtroom was heightened by a spring heat wave. The state called to the stand Dr. R.R. Bridges, the Scottsboro physician who had examined Price and Bates hours after they'd been taken from the train. As expected, he confirmed that he had found semen in their bodies.
Leibowitz now cross-examines him and essentially turns him into a witness for the defense.
Leibowitz asked the doctor if the girls had shown any signs of a struggle, bruises or scratches. He answered no. Had the girls been hysterical, breathing heavily, with elevated pulses? No. Had the sperm he had seen in his microscope been moving? Again, no.
The spermatozoa were non-motile. That means they were dead. And they would not have been non-motile if 6 Negroes had ejaculated themselves into her an hour to an hour and a half before she was examined by the doctor.
Leibowitz next called his star witness, Lester Carter, to the stand. Carter testified that he and a friend had been with the 2 girls the night before the fateful train ride.
Victoria Price said she knew where we could go and see fun. Take a walk, for instance.
Go ahead. What happened?
We walked up the yards till we come to the hobo jungles.
What occurred in the hobo jungles that night?
We all sat down near a abandoned lake of water where there was honeysuckles in the little ditch. I hung my hat on a little limb and went to have an intercourse with Ruby. By firelight, I saw Victoria's boyfriend had intercourse with her.
This is what happened. It wasn't that they were raped. Victoria Price, Ruby Bates, and their 2 boyfriends had sex, and that's all it amounts to.
Throughout Patterson's trial, the other 8 defendants had been kept locked away in the Decatur jail, unaware of the proceedings. Now, Leibowitz brought them to the courthouse under heavy guard. Inside, Leibowitz called each to the stand in turn. Each denied having ever touched Victoria Price or Ruby Bates. The last to take the stand was Haywood Patterson.
Did you have anything to do with a white girl?
I didn't see any girls on the train.
You are a colored boy. Would you dare rape a white girl?
No, sir.
Haywood Patterson, did you rape this girl?
No, sir.
Each time he would say, I did not touch any of them. I had nothing to do with any of them.
With Patterson's testimony over, many thought Leibowitz would rest his case.
What Leibowitz does is pretend that he's about to rest his case, and then he quietly goes up to the judge and says, I'm going to have one more witness. The crowd is buzzing. Horton doesn't know what's going on. The prosecution doesn't have the slightest idea what's going on.
The door opens in the back of the courtroom, and in comes Ruby Bates. Only she's coming into the courtroom not as a witness for the prosecution, but as a witness for the defense.
When she made her appearance, the tension in the court was palpable. Knight was jittery. He turned red. Crowd, they were gasped. There's Ruby Bates testifying for the defense.
Ruby Bates had spent the months before the trial in hiding, as far from the media glare and the clutches of the prosecution and defense as she could get. She had made her way to New York until finally representatives of the ILD tracked her down and convinced her to return